Hey everyone, welcome to the Vegan Stew. We're glad that you're here. It should be an interesting conversation tonight. We got lots of news. There's lots of news this week. So we'll have a whole bunch of stuff from snails to horrible people, everything in between. So let's say go to virtualvegfestlive.com, enter our wish pond contest. Really cool this month. You can win one of 9 prize packs, but you have to do a little bit more work by posting a picture. Creative gets you even more points, more chances to win of one of our sponsors. Just something. It could be in the supermarket. It can be from your house. It can be food you're eating. It could be just about any. It could be a picture of you with their website behind you. Whatever you want. It could also be something from virtualvegfest.com. Whatever you want to do. We are really enjoying the photos that have been uploaded so far. You can go and vote on them as well. Just give us an idea of what you like. So that's that. If you go to YouTube, you can go to the Vegan Stew and subscribe and hit the notification button and know when we go live. You can also do that with Virtual Veg Fest Live. You can also do that with all of our social media. We got a whole bunch of people who are doing this from a whole bunch of places. Let me say hi and thank you to our sponsors, Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce for this month, for July. And then you have a few days left to win prize packs from TerraSeed, Hodo Foods, Veg Key, Follow Your Heart, Revolution Gelato, Rebel Cheese, Sinaholic, Familish, and Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce, which is pretty amazing. Who else gives away 9 prize packs in the course of 1 month? If you have any questions or comments, kind of anticipate them tonight because our topic is, what do you do when they stop being vegan? Should we do anything? Should we say something? Do you say something? What do we do? That's what we're going to discuss tonight after we talk about the news. And let us bring in the stew crew so we can get this show started. First off, we have Kelly from the Vegan Abler and Climate Healers. We have Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hello.
Ellen Jaffe Jones from VegCoach.com. We have Kimberly Winters from Did You Bring the Hummus? And we got Naus from Gothenra, Phantom, and Fast. Thank you. So, Stew Crew. I don't even want to start with a question. I think we have so much news. And the snails, I just want a personal note on snails because we're going to talk about the snails. I saw that story and I love snails. I have since I was a child loved snails. I think they're the coolest creatures on the planet. I don't care that they're destructive. I don't care what they do. I think they're really cool. So now Florida has these huge snails that eat stucco. Ellen, what do they do?
Yeah, move it to Florida.
The demolition crew calling these guys. So the invasive African land snail, one of the most damaging snails in the world. I'm sorry,
Princess.
Stage. They've returned to Florida for the 3rd time in the state's history, according to the Department of Ag. And since their latest discovery in June, as of last week, officials have captured 1,400 of them, dead and alive, on 30 properties in Pasco County, where Miriam, our board president, lives. Florida Voices for Animals, and 40 minutes northwest of Tampa. So these guys have a voracious appetite, eating 500 types of plants, sometimes even consuming plaster and stucco, putting structures at risk. The snails can produce 1,200 eggs a year and grow up to the size of a human fist. They can also carry rat lungworm, which causes meningitis in humans. If you see them, Agriculture Department says, most importantly, do not eat them. This is not a snail to be put on butter and oil and garlic. They're first found in the state. I'm sorry. In the 1960s, it took $1 million and 7 years to get rid of them. In 2010, they were reintroduced and eradicated after a decade, and 23 million. It's unclear how they got there this time, but the animals are illegal to have or to import in the U.S. without a permit. The assistant director of the state's Division of Plant Industry noted in the briefing that unlike previous detections, these snails have cream-colored bodies with a dark mottled brown shell. Okay, so anyway, you can go to the Smithsonian Magazine to we could go on about these guys, but they do say in the article that they were imported by the exotic pet trade. So if you have any of these pet stores in your community, or you know people who have exotic pets, please try and talk to them.
talk sense into them. It's so there are people in Florida when this first came up that are actually quarantined in their homes, right, Ellen? Like they're not allowed out of their houses because of these snails, because of the meningitis risk.
Right.
Because the snails are the size of your fist. Isn't that awesome?
Floridians
snails
love
ever.
quarantines, by the way. They love
What?
they love any kind of anything like that. Yeah.
Anything that takes away their rights, they're all on board.
Quote unquote.
Let's
on
see,
board.
Kelly, you wanted to do a story too about soy.
Yes. So
Okay.
this article comes from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is a cancer care center in New York. And they wrote an article about whether eating soy increases estrogen and causes breast cancer. And as vegans, we hear about soy all the time. It's an argument that people use, to, either because they're misinformed or they think that we just eat soy all the time and they don't want to, so they don't want to be vegan, so they use this as an excuse. And it's just a myth that won't die. And so the answer is no. Soy is actually helpful for preventing cancer and reducing its occurrence. And people who have soy-based diets have lower rates of cancer, especially breast cancer. And there's two types of estrogen. Our body makes estrogen, which is a hormone, and it keeps our reproductive and internal systems running. And estrogens can fuel certain cancers. And our body's estrogen is different from the type of estrogen that's found in soy, which is phytoestrogen.
Phytoestrogen, yeah.
Yeah. And so soy comes from soybeans. It's made of isoflavones, which are a type of plant estrogen, and it's structurally different than the estrogen in our bodies. So the plant-based estrogen does not convert into the estrogens that our body makes when we eat it. So it cannot drive cancer growth the same way that the estrogen that our body makes can. And it's found that soy is not only reduce the risk of cancer, but has the risk of coming back. There's been a study that shows a 30% reduction in breast cancer reoccurrence risk when people consumed a moderate amount of isoflavones. Soy has a lot of health benefits outside of cancer prevention too. It's associated with lowered cholesterol, reduced risk of heart disease, and shown to help stroke patients recover. And it says that data showing that soy could reduce the risk of prostate cancer, and there's also evidence that soy can reduce the risk of lung cancer and endometrial cancer. And so, how much soy should we eat? If you like it, then you don't have to like it. If you like it, then they say 1 to 2 servings a day is recommended. Yeah, so hopefully, it's not going to put the myth to risk. We already know that, but it's coming from a cancer center, and the answer is no.
That's awesome. That's really
I want
good
to
news.
do a whole episode just
On soy?
the myths around. Am I frozen? Sorry. I want to do a whole episode just on soy and the myths around it and where those originated, which is the Weston Price Foundation, and is not based in anything real, but somehow or another. It was almost like, in some ways, it was one of those original disinformation campaigns that people just ran with. So
That's awesome. So hi, Stephen. That's nice, Stephen. And Ellen was like, Stephen, I would love to have tofu for dinner. So there we go. So Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out, because I happen to have this on my desk because I still use it all the time. This is the original cancer survivors book that Princess actually has eaten part of. But I used this when I was a cooking instructor for the Cancer Project, which is now PCRM's Food for Life class. And this was published in 2006. And right here, they're dealing, let's see if we can get this up, the whole soy controversy there. And many of the things you just said are right there. We were dealing with that all the time. And, this section, if we do the whole class or the whole talk on it, then, we can get into some of these issues. But basically, it's the same stuff. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Marla, there's a couple, before they were arrested looked decent, right? I'm looking at the right couple, right? No, maybe I'm conflating this with another story.
I think you are. It was one. I don't know where you're going with it, but it was one.
Yeah, there was like another couple that someone else posted today that were sentenced to like a number of years for being racist. So go ahead.
We're just flooded with so much information always. Well, my story is interesting because it doesn't sound like a feel-good story, but right now it is kind of showing up to be one. So this happened in Illinois, but it's actually kind of it's been getting national news. It was on PBS and a bunch of different national news stations. There is a bakery and cafe in suburban Illinois. It's about 45 minutes from Chicago. And it's a vegan and gluten-free bakery and cafe called Uprising. And they opened during the pandemic. So they're trying, hi, Susan, trying really hard to just stay afloat and attract new business in an area that's not exactly like on the cutting edge of veganism. But anyway, they have been having all kinds of different programming, from live music to painting events and that sort of thing, to draw people into the cafe. They're free of charge or low cost. One of the events that they were planning was a drag queen brunch, very family friendly. It's kind of ridiculous that they have to assure the public of this, but there's no stripping, as though drag queens notoriously strip. But it's just like the whole point is that your body looks different than what you're presenting. But anyway, what I was going to say is the right wing got a hold of this information and decided that this little bakery and cafe, less than like about a year old, really trying hard to make it, was a front for groomers, aka pedophiles, and just started a harassment campaign against this innocent, sweet little place. For 2 or 3 weeks, they have been flooded with messages, with threats, with people coming into the actual property and spitting on the bakery cases, with people putting signs out front that say pedophiles work here, all because of this one drag brunch that was, again, family friendly. Anyway, this culminated on Saturday when a wingnut took it upon himself to go to the location and vandalize it. He broke a bunch of windows. He spray painted just inflammatory, homophobic and stuff slogans on the wall. Anyway, that was the day that the event was supposed to be. And what is beautiful is how the community, and I don't mean just the vegan community, but the larger community of kind people who care about anti-hate, lives, have been rallying around this cafe. They've gotten in-person donations in cash. They've got 2 or 3 different fundraisers that people have put up, because the restaurant was practically, they did go to work the next day, but they, had plyboards over the broken things. The point is, faith-based communities, LGBTQ communities, vegan and otherwise, have all rallied around this place. And so it's a very, very good feeling to know how supported they are. And they have a drag brunch coming up in a couple of weeks. So they're unbowed, undeterred. And so anyway, that was my happy story. And that the name of the place is Uprising.
That's awesome. Well, it's nice to see. It's nice to see these days, to see a community rally. I mean, it does happen. So that's a nice positive from our talk last week. Well, interesting conversation we're going to have about the topic for tonight's show is what to do when they stop being vegan. So what do you do when they stop being vegan? How do you find out? Do you find out? Facebook is great for that. Suddenly they're posting pictures of the animal and meat that they've eaten, they're starting to eat. And one was a guest on my show and is no longer vegan. And it's weird. I personally I typically don't say something. I don't typically have the opportunity to say something. I probably would if I was annoyed enough. I'm not sure. Do I have a reason to be annoyed? It's not my body. It's my body, my choice. I mean, what do you do? What do you do anything? What? Of course. Now tell me what you do, bat woman, bat person.
How's your
So
cholesterol?
great. um, um,
Let me see.
I was in a relationship with someone who, as soon as it ended, was vegan no more. Just with the quickness, and I was just like, okay. Secondly, I came across several celebrities or YouTubers that were big within the community who, because they got caught, all of the sudden, then they had to say, well, I stopped because, I couldn't get this and it wasn't being provided. Mind you, you were still taking money from the vegan
Right.
community,
Right.
push your tours and to push your retreats and your books and everything else. Certain celebrities, Miley Cyrus, I can't
Ugh,
stand her, but
that was gross.
she
Yeah.
was vegan, and then all of a sudden she was like, well, I'm not, because my body was just not doing well and everything was crashing, and she said something about I couldn't get vitamin D or I couldn't get something. I was like, well, you're full of it, because you can. I think that's in veganism still is being seen as a trend, or a lot of people will take it and say, oh yeah, it's going to go ahead and get me somewhere, and then they'll milk it because they don't see the importance of it, or they'll say things like, well, cheese is so hard, I can't find it, or I don't know what I would do without it. There have been so many advances in regards to vegan cheese, and not just one brand. When I started or became vegan, it was just one. Um, and there are a lot of options. There are some that don't contain any soy. There's some that are just made out of coconut. There's some that are just really amazing. There are a lot of small artisan vegan cheeses as well. So many places where you can get it and you wouldn't know the difference. So if you're giving a valid reason, because everybody's body is different, not everybody can go vegan. You have people that go with good intentions and want to do it, and then something happens where they can't. For a medical reason, I understand that. But if you're doing it and then you get caught, or all of a sudden, well, it just, I got bored. Just like we can, we have radars that go off and, you can pick up something. It's just really, I don't like false people. It's just like, don't do it if you think you're just going to do it as a trend. It's not a diet. It's not a fast. That's not what it is. If you wanted to try it out, just say, I would like to go plant-based. But when people who are vegan all of a sudden drop it for the sake of, well, meh, and there's not really a reason behind it, or you've gotten the purpose in terms of milking from people, that rubs me the wrong way. Absolutely rubs me the wrong way.
Kelly.
Yeah. So for me, for the most part, I probably tend not to. I guess it would depend on who it is. If it was someone close that I felt comfortable saying it to, I probably could, but I tend not to. And there's been a couple times on Facebook that people that I had on my friends list, probably just because they were vegan, but I never talked to them. And then it was brought to my attention, from another post that this person's no longer vegan. And I think what's like, what I noticed this, like, just everyone I've seen that stop being vegan is they don't just say, like what Now said, like, my body, whatever, like, I had trouble, like, they go full on trashing vegans. Like this one vegan, this person seemed to be a huge animal rights activist, and I don't know what happened, but he started calling veganism a cult and like trashing us, saying like we're the worst people. And it's like, like, because they're so embarrassed, especially if they stop for a selfish reason, like they just crave something, that that's their way of compensating by somehow making it like it was our fault. We were so pushy. We did this, we did that, and we caused it. And that's probably when I would speak up.
Those are fighting words. Ellen, I saw you first. Then Kimberly.
I just want to go back to before we kind of let that comment just sort of sit out there as fact, that I can understand if somebody stops being vegan for medical reasons. I am not aware of any medical reason why a person would need to stop being vegan. First of all, I would know that they need to stop drinking dairy, because that causes just a plethora of medical problems. And certainly animal protein, animal products, well documented all the medical problems that those cause. But I don't think I've ever heard of one study that says you should give up being vegan because it causes your heart to fill with cholesterol. I mean, am I missing something here?
Kimberly, like Announce is like, no, let me respond.
Yeah, let Mouse respond and then I'll go, because I was going in a different direction.
Okay.
I think that while there isn't anything that's documented, and you have unfortunately a small pocket still of physicians that will say to their patients, definitely try. It works. That seems to be where the problem would lie. Because they are not told or they're not guided. Some people don't know either in regards to the medical aspect, they don't know. There could be misinformation that is fed, for example, which will play a part. Now, I completely agree with you that there's really no studies that are showing that there is a reason not to go vegan, unless there's something that may be where they're not supplementing, if that makes sense. For example, it is real common, it says for people who are vegan, we do have vitamin D deficiencies. Sometimes, unfortunately, they may think because that marker shows that they may be deficient, oh my gosh, there's a health reason or something like that. And then the doctor won't say, well, no, just supplement.
Right.
So it could be something on their end from what they have heard from either someone close in the field that's not guiding them towards that right thing, and they don't know to advocate for themselves or maybe to kind of research and find out, that can lead to them saying for medical reasons. And sometimes, unfortunately, if it is that low, because it can cause problems, unless they don't know, say they're not told, okay, well, what could I do? What can I increase? What other food, plant-based food, could I go ahead and take? What can I supplement to bring that up?
Take,
There is vegan, there is
deficient.
vegan, yeah.
Everybody's
Right, but some
deficient
of
in
them
D.
don't know.
Everybody's deficient in B12. Meat
Right.
eaters, not meat eaters, everybody is, especially as you get older. And any
Right,
doctor
but
that
you don't
doesn't
have
advise
them,
of
they may
that
not know.
is doing the wrong job. I
Of
don't think
course.
there's any doctor, if you've reached most of our ages, that would say, like, my B12 and my D when I turned 30, I believe. Nope. No. Yeah, maybe. No, I had to be younger. No, wherever I was in that range. 40. I guess it was 40. When I turned 40, it was so low that they said if I was 70 years old, I wouldn't have known my name. I took D and B12. I was vegetarian, so I was getting products in me that could be sufficient for that. Sun, it's vitamin D. Who doesn't know where vitamin D comes from? Eat cereal. It's fortified. Sorry, it frustrates me. I get what you're saying now. I don't believe that D is a good reason to stop being vegan. And if someone wrote that, I would definitely respond to that comment. There are some things that are on Ellen's page right now. There's a whole conversation on, I think it's on vegan $4 a day. They both have it. They both have conversations about this show with with people kind of annoyed at us even wanting to talk about why we would say something to somebody who's stop being vegan. Well, well, I guess you can see some reasons. I'm frustrated that someone would even think to save D is a reason to do that. So, Kimberly, go ahead. I'm writing questions down, which I never do, which I'll definitely ask everybody.
So I think if I knew someone who had been vegan and then stopped being vegan, even if I kind of knew them, I would have two questions. Why? And then what made you go vegan in the first place? Because I think it's important to remind them of why they made that choice to begin with. And if they can reconnect to that bigger purpose, maybe they'll come back. Which is, always my hope, because that's good for the animals and good for our planet and better for them. But those would definitely be my first two choices, my first two questions. And then as far as the vitamin D goes, Marla and I have had this talk on this show before. We, just like Helene, were both super low and did not have to stop being vegan. We just took supplements, and I know that I feel amazing now that I have done that.
Yeah, I take it every day. Marla.
Yeah, me too.
I was just going to mention, I think that my response depends on the relationship and that sort of thing. Like if this is some rando on Facebook who's being an asshole about it also, click, bye, out of my life. If this is I've, having been vegan since 95, I guess, I've seen many people come and go. And a lot of times when people come into it because, oh, my boyfriend's vegan, or I heard I can lose weight or whatever, it doesn't necessarily stick. Now, I found a lot more recidivism with vegetarians than vegans, because often when you get to the point of vegan, you get the underlying, basis of it. And it has a much firmer foundation, in my opinion, than vegetarianism. That said, so it does depend on the relationship. A lot of times when someone who's kind of grandfathered into my life, like I've known them since high school or whatever, they tell me they're interested in veganism, I'm so there for them with support and help. But I also kind of protect myself because emotionally, even after all these years, it still feels like a knife in my chest every time I find out someone who was vegan is no longer vegan. It feels, and I know that sounds hyperbolic and dramatic, but it just feels like a betrayal. And I'm just cloaked with hurt for at least a day or more. So a lot of times, like, I don't even start caring until a year has passed. Then I'm like, okay, now you're vegan. Now I'm going to start caring. But the other thing I was going to mention is that when John, this is a little bit to Naus's point, I think a lot of times with medical stuff, people can get really scared, understandably. If somebody comes to you with, a scary report, scary blood work, and you don't really necessarily know how to discern it. And there are a lot of people out there who don't necessarily want to put the legwork into just figuring it out. It's like D is imminently doable. B12 is imminently doable, but there's a lot of people who, and I don't say this with judgment, that this is not the kind of person I am, but there are a lot of people who just want simple. I don't want to take a supplement. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I just want to not think about it. And for those people, I think those kinds of, when they get this kind of news, it's a little more challenging. And I will also say that with, when my husband was diagnosed with leukemia and then recovering from that, obviously a plant-based diet does the body strong, but he needed more calories than ever to keep his weight up. He'd gotten very thin. And there are all kinds of considerations with the diet after a bone marrow transplant that I won't even get into. But the point is, I had to figure out how to maximize calories, and nutrition was at like the lowest part of the consideration. It was really calories. So I can see, if I were a caregiver of someone who is vegan, I might, and I wasn't vegan myself, I might be like, can't we just not be vegan now? And like later you can figure it out. I can see how someone could do that. Now, in my vegan frame of mind, of course, that doesn't gel with me, but I understand it because it can get scary.
Totally get it. There's a comment that I'm posting right now that's actually from Google Plus. Come through and say, hey, Adam, thanks for joining us. He said, I have a friend who is in a really bad place with her health. This person went vegan about 3 to 4 years ago and has much better health now. Unfortunately, she went back to eating lamb. the SH, which I missed, which is, and she's Christian. I missed that. And I'm just like, ugh, laughing out loud. So I'm not sure which one. Uh-oh, I'm trying to take it away. I don't know which one it was to remove it. Someone remove it for thank you. It's really funny. I was like, I don't know which one it is. So, oh, it went into two of them. That's why. So that's now it's one sec. I see the bat. The person who I don't see this a lot in my stream of somebody. I know two people that I'm aware of that I know 100% they were vegan and they're not anymore. One, like I said, was on my show. And that person went towards bodybuilding and felt that putting animal products back into their diet helped them build muscle better. And that annoys me. It annoys me because I know people like Aaron Fergus. Katya is one of the stew crew. No. Look at these vegan bodybuilders. Truly vegan, ethically vegan bodybuilders. There's absolutely no issue with building muscle. You do not need a ton of protein. I know there's two different. Katya is pro protein. Dr. Campbell is pro not eating a ton of protein. Robert Cheek goes in the direction of Dr. Campbell, but Aaron and Katya go in the direction of tons of protein. Get it? They still have a ton of muscle, and they're incredibly healthy-ish, because when you bodybuild, you're not healthy. They admit to that. They eat really crappy, and they starve themselves, and they build. It's a whole field, and it's very difficult to do. So I don't want to necessarily say they're like incredibly healthy people. They look they look like a big muscle, and it's a skill and amazing that they do that. But I didn't say anything. I don't know what to say, but Kimberly, great suggestion to say, why were you originally vegan in the first place? And I, selfishly wanting to build muscle, the planet's dying around us. I'm sorry. No, it to me, that's incredibly selfish. I don't know if the person watches or not, but I obviously am not saying who the person is, but no, I see Kelly.
Yeah, Kimberly and I are always on the same wavelengths. And that's one of the things I wrote in my notes was find out why they went vegan in the first place, and remind them of that. But I think what I see, a lot from vegans is we tend to forget how much pressure people have in society to not be vegan. And I think that we have to understand, that we're not in their lives to support them all the time. And they're going to go back to their meat eating families, their meat eating coworkers, their meat eating everything. Right. And, so I know that's a big part of the recidivism, is, the social pressures and a lack of community. And so I think community is really important to help someone maintain vegan. I know when I went vegan, I did not have a community, and I seeked out that community. I don't want to say that community kept me vegan. I'd like to think that I would have remained vegan regardless, but the community was everything.
Ellen, I'm sorry now, so we'll get to you in a sec.
So there was a study, and forgive me, I can't remember it, who did it, but maybe it was Funalytics. If people choose to go vegan because of animal rights, they tend to stay vegan longer than if they do it for health reasons. Because, you can always, in your head, I suppose, come up with a medical excuse or reason. And this was really tested for me. A couple of you know, I was diagnosed about 2 years ago, mistakenly, as it turns out, with a rare form of leukemia. And I did not believe my first doctor. I was just like, no, this is not possible. I can't be doing the kinds of things athletically I'm doing if I truly have this kind of blood cancer, and it's bone marrow cancer, actually. And so I went up, I got a second opinion at the Moffitt Cancer Institute, which is like RMD Anderson. And they said, no. The guy used the wrong test. You should not have extrapolated from the blood work that you got that you had this kind of cancer. And so I went back to this first doctor and I said, so what do you say now? And he says, well, I still think you kind of do. I mean, he was just really pussyfooting around it and dancing. And he said, but you are my testimonial to my other cancer patients, how you can be so strong and do all this, and it's just like, the point being is that I think as vegans, we are just kind of programmed to question doctors in the first place. And if you get a diagnosis, I think it's important, especially one like that, you just don't take it as the gospel and look for other answers because there are.
Nouse.
Sorry, muting just because if the baby's make an appearance with clothes. So I kind of want to be quick and touch upon, because everybody made such great comments. Yes, you want to find out why somebody went vegan in the first place. You know where their heart is and where their mind is. Marla, in regards to health and what your husband was experiencing, when I was in the hospital, I suffered major atrophy. So because of that, I always work out. I went from being able to bench about 75 to press about 100 to lift weights about 50 to now I'm building my strength up using a 4-pound bar. That is how much I lost while I was in the hospital. And the nutritionist was the one that stated, we need to increase your protein because that can be missed. I'm here with my family and they're helping me. They're not vegan. So they don't know, you know what I'm saying? For them, just like you said, a caregiver would not really know. So I'm doing it by myself, but I've been vegan for so long. And luckily, my nutritionist herself is vegan. So she's like, this is what you do. And this is how we increase it. Beans contain a lot of protein. Seeds contain a lot of protein. It's having the right guidance from somewhere else where someone may not have that in terms of having a non-vegan and a non-vegan caregiver. So it is about taking that time, that other person taking the time to understand, okay, so what does this person need for supplementation? It is really easy to get supplements. It's very easy. But again, it's like, do they really want to put in the work? In regards to the lamb thing, okay, so when I was pregnant with my second child, for no reason out of the blue, I was hungry and I wanted a lamb gyro. And my husband was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I want that. He was like, okay. So he knew I'm going to pick up a vegan version for her as well. And as soon as he brought it, I looked at it and just started crying and then went full on Lisa Simpson. There is a sheep in front of me. There's a lamb. Why is this here? What is going on? I was just like bawling. And he was like, I got it. I'll take it away. And he was like, here. And I was like, thank you. And he was like, I was like, pregnancy. Like the baby was like, look here. But I was like, no. But they're healthy boys and, they're vegan themselves and they don't crave it. And, they don't need it. They know about compassion.
Right.
So in regards to bodybuilders, going back to that one is very touchy because, Arnold Schwarzenegger went vegan. There are a whole bunch of vegan bodybuilders. It is kind of like where you can't be like, well, you just kind of left it, you didn't really know. But it's becoming more mainstream within weightlifting and bodybuilding and things like that. Yeah, it is sometimes kind of like null and void, unfortunately, because sometimes there are supplements, nitrates, things like that are added that kind of, the body's kind of fighting itself. You're getting the protein and the other things you're using to kind of amp up. And so it's going to end up sweating out and stripping out anyway. But yeah, I think, just like Ellen, like you were saying, getting a second opinion on something is the best thing to go ahead and do. And finding a doctor that'll take you seriously. And your body. There's always some things that, no one else will know, but you will.
Those are great points. Marla, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this conversation's making me think of, do you know the drummer Travis Barker? I believe his last name is. He's with some Kardashian or another. I don't know. Anyway, he was a longtime vegan and got in a terrible plane crash, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, where a lot of his body was burned. And he actually had to, it was kind of, he was on the brink, I think, for a bit there. And my understanding, if I remember it correctly, was he stopped being vegan during this time where his body was repairing itself and his skin was repairing itself, because he wasn't, the main thing was that the collagen, so my point is, like when we're talking about these big traumatic life events like that, a friend of mine who's also a dietitian said this is why we shouldn't be judging people or trying to impede things like lab-grown meat for these occasions where an animal-free source could actually be the difference between someone staying vegan or not. Thankfully, he kind of came back into it. But the point that I think one of my points is that's why I get so agitated. Part of the reason why I get so agitated when people put obstacles and roadblocks up around vegan foods. And that includes oil. I don't care what you do in your personal life, but when you're starting to like judge and finger point and stuff, somebody has some olive oil on the salad. I think that those are ways that we push people out unnecessarily. When we start adding all these, extra things to what a vegan diet is, or you start health shaming about this or that or this or that. We should try to be as encouraging and inclusive of all vegan foods. I don't care if you're eating fucking cinnamon rolls all day. It has no bearing in my life. I don't care. And so I get really annoyed with people who, for some reason, have to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this. So I think this kind of has a role in why people fade away.
I don't know
Kelly,
what my finger is doing.
you don't know what your finger's doing?
I'm like, I have something to say, and for some reason my finger's just like, wink, wink. So I'll wait though. I'll wait.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that one thing that I see vegans do a lot, and I'm completely guilty of it, and I might even think it in my head, but I don't say it now, is, when people do, when there is vegan recidivism, that we say, you were never vegan in the first place, and like, that doesn't help someone come back. It's just going to put the defense up even more to say, like, why veganism is like, because, a lot of people don't want to be vegan just because of a way a vegan treated them, which is crazy, but it happens, right? So, because like Dr. Rao always, he tells the story about how he goes to a classroom, he asks a group of like kindergartners, would you ever knowingly harm an animal on purpose? And they're like, no. He's like, so you're already vegan. You just align your morals, right? These people wouldn't want to harm an animal. So like in their mind, they're vegan, and just something happened that, misinformation, whatever, that got them off that path. And so I think these negative words, it doesn't help,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nels.
I'm making sure that there's not another naked baby to come. So, something that I wanted to touch upon too is the attitude or approach of another can be a turnoff. That can have a psychological or emotional effect to switch someone off from being vegan. A lot of these groups that will do where they are, especially ones that I was a part of, a lot of Facebook groups I've taken myself out of, because it is very much, oh, well, don't eat soy. Don't do this. Oh, alkaline this, alkaline. I'm like, I'm going to alkaline my way out of this group. I can't take this anymore. You guys need to stop. The other thing that they want to do is to condemn people. All of these groups that are, sometimes come off very elitist And I'm like, this is not, don't do that. Don't. You're again hurting the cause. That can have an immediately paints a picture, even if you know someone else who is vegan who's not that way. Unfortunately, that experience is going to be a lock, and it's going to take a lot to either bring them back or reintroduce it. Another reason why people were vegan and they probably cannot, you have to understand, is the demographic, where you live, what's available. You can have in a lot of communities where they have gone and they have been either through a family friend or researching themselves, and they are vegan and they love it and what it's doing for their body. But then they are like, either financially, they don't have that. There can be something where cost wise, income wise, wherever within the community, what's around them, that plays a big part as well. So when you do have that, and sometimes it's very prevalent around a lot of Black and Brown communities where that's an issue. So I think in that case, you can't judge at all. Now, if they know, again, community comes in, it takes a village to raise a child, that type of thing. It takes a village to do anything. Sometimes you end up having where people are urban farmers. That's growing amazingly within African American communities, where there's farming being done, gardens being done. And so those are where you have where then somebody who may have been out of it for that particular reason of cost can then come in because the community supports that person and their needs. So yeah, you can't, judge. Being judgy hurts everything, depending on what it is,
I see Ellen's phone.
So I may have shared this before, but when I was pregnant, my doctors at the time said, you're going to cause brain damage to your unborn fetus child if you don't supplement with whey protein. And it wasn't just the doctor, it was a nurse practitioner that I was going to for like a Lamaze class. And, there was so much misinformation back then. Point being is, I think, as vegans, we have to look at some of these situations with compassion and go like, who they've been talking to. You just don't know sometimes until you question it. The other thing is, without naming names, it's funny how some of these groups have strange bedfellows. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you all are on a lot of I love you. These distribution lists. So this week one comes in from this, we'll just call it a no fat, no oil group. And they are partnering with an up and coming, kind of established actually book author. Oh, I think you got the same newsletter, who was full of fat in his books. And it's like, wait, what? Oh, now you're seeing the dollar signs. And, so it's important to understand this in the vegan movement, that this kind of thing happens. I was doing webinars for a while. You would have, have any of you had a screening call to see if you're okay to be on a webinar if you really meet the qualification of having a distribution list of 5,000 people or more? I see some nodding heads. So, is it really my message you care about, or is it my distribution list? So anyway, rant over. Oh.
Marla's miming.
In the mime mode. That's scary. That's orange alert. I was going to say, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I feel like what Ellen said, there is a connection between what I've been observing over the past couple of years with the COVID deniers and the anti-vaxxers within the vegan movement, who are aligning with organizations like the Weston Price Foundation and other, nonsense, non-medical organizations in their messaging, because honestly, I think a lot of it is, I think the mentality of the enemy of the enemy, Big Pharma, for example, is my friend. But I think a darker part that I don't like to think about people, but I believe is to be true, is some of these folks have reached their maximum of who they're reaching. And so at this point, it's like, less of a meeting of the minds than a sharing of the newsletter lists, of the email lists. It's I'll show you to my platform, you show me to your platform. I don't fucking care if I'm sharing a stage with a Nazi, as long as I'm talking about, and that's true. That's Del Bigtree is one of the big anti-vaxxers. This has nothing to do with this topic, but it does show how willing people can be in terms of moral flexibility when they think that they can get their books sold to more people, their newsletters out to more people, their platforms grown. So beware of that, because people are doing it. And as to Ellen's point, I am kind of thinking I know who that is, or I won't also name names, but they have, if it is the same organization, people, whatever, they've been spreading just, in retrospect, there are things that I looked past for years about their demonizing nuts and seeds and stuff like that, and just having to have big dramatic fights with people who argued with them or debated them. It just had to become like character assassination. In retrospect, I should have never made room in my life for just accepting that. Yeah, you know, some people do. My standards for who I'm going to, whose information I'm going to share, who I'm going to align with, even be friends with on Facebook, is so much higher than it used to be. My standards are like, because this pandemic has shown the true colors of so many people. Anyway, that's it.
Who is it? I want to know.
Oh, I'm not
Yep.
saying, because
Oh,
this person is very
it's-
litigious. I'll tell you after.
It's a newsletter. What's the newsletter
Well,
that you received? It's a newsletter, right? What's the name of it?
Ellen received the newsletter, but she might want to just tell us after the call.
You're
on-
muted,
Yeah.
just so you know. You're muted.
Ellen.
I was like, wait, is she telling us? She is, but she's muted. She told us. Can you read lips?
Come on, Ellen, spill the tea. We need
What,
to know.
Ellen?
The
Wait a
girls
minute.
need to know.
Play the mute.
Oh,
part.
Miss Jazzy wants to know too.
are the numbers
Ellen.
going up? Oh, yes. Social media loves controversy. Okay. I mean, they do a lot of good work. You know, my mommy taught me never to say, you know, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't do that. But, okay.
Just want to know the name of the newsletter. That's
tea,
it.
ladies.
The T. Colin Campbell's group.
It's Dr. Campbell, really?
And,
No.
you know,
Really?
Well, Ellen, can I
He's-
interrupt for a second and say he was interviewed by Will Tuttle, who is a huge anti-vaxxer, promoter of disinformation right
Right.
now.
Right.
And so you got to look at the bedfellows again, you know?
so he is promoting Robert Cheek, and I love Robert. I've been on the circuit with him. I've read all his books, and they're full of nuts and seeds. It's like, I just don't.
That's so interesting because, you know, Nelson Campbell with Planned Pure Nation, they're not against nuts and seeds. They have no issue with that. There's low sugar, low oil, low salt. I mean, they follow that, which Dr. Campbell certainly does. But Nelson and Kim have cashews and
Well-
seeds and stuff and plant-based milks and a lot
Those
of
things are
what's in her
vegan, so that's
cookbooks.
great.
And
Yeah.
the Plant Pure frozen food line, when I started looking at it, is really high in all kinds of additives. And, you know, I think it's sometimes is just about the money and what sells.
That is sadly very, 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 very true. So, question here that kind of fits one of the things that I wrote down is that difference between vegan and whole food plant-based. I'm going to go a little deeper though, because I get that whole food plant-based is not vegan, because vegan is not just about the food. It's about your ethics, your morals, it's about the animals, the planet, and the food that you put into your body. And that someone can be whole food plant-based and eat a little chicken, eat a little fish, and still call themselves whole food plant-based until they talk to someone like us and we go, that's pescatarian or you're an omnivore, that you're very vegan friendly, but you know, at the same time, I don't want to discourage someone because you want them to do more. And it might not say anything anyway, but depends on where the conversation goes, right? But there's a movement within the vegan world to not call ourselves vegan because of all the hate within the vegans. Because I'm going to go what Kimberly spoke about on Monday, which was such an interesting show. If you didn't catch it, Fireside Chat with Kimberly is on Mondays at 7. Kimberly's show was about broccoli. And I said to Steven, Kimberly's show is about broccoli. And I was like, it's not the broccoli that you think, though. Kimberly's show is about a post in a vegan group. Kimberly, you tell it. It's your story. You tell it.
I was in I'm in a zillion vegan groups, right? And someone posted, is broccoli suitable for vegans? And I was talking about how this, based on the information this person had gotten from a certain doctor that they found online, broccoli is not suitable for vegans and really anyone because it's man-made. Because way back in the 1600s,
Ellen rolled her eyes. Look at Ellen's eyes.
yeah, I know. Some farmers got together and they said, how can we like create more food? And so they did. And cauliflower also is not suitable for anyone, especially vegans, because it's got nothing in it. That's why it's white. This was another little gem that I pulled out from when I quickly looked at this doctor. I know, right? So,
well, I'm gonna have to give up my all cauliflower diet now. Jeez.
No more brassicas. No more. They're all bad for you. Humans
just go get your
can't
cancer.
Eat it. I know, and I did. I mentioned that. I said, Dr. Greger's got tons of things on his nutritionfacts.org about dripping bits of broccoli juice on cancer cells and killing them. So I don't know about you, but I'm okay with eating a man-made vegetable that can help protect me from things that my environment, maybe the other food that I eat or used to eat, is starting to cause in my body. But people were commenting, and one of my viewers was like, please do not tell me broccoli is not vegan. If I can't eat broccoli, it's all over for me. So I let them know that broccoli is safe. Please keep eating your broccoli. Don't listen to this one person.
I get so tired, you guys. Tired.
And the other reason too is like broccoli is so acidic and our bodies can't handle. So it goes back to like Now's touched on about this alkaline. And when in the early 2000s, I went macrobiotic for a while. So I had studied that and the yin and yang of food and balancing the acid and the alkaline. And at no point did macrobiotics tell me that broccoli was dangerous. In fact, they wanted me to eat all of the broccoli, the stems, the florets, all of it.
Eat a variety of these things. I mean, just like I can't even. Somebody sees one. You go to a vegan restaurant and you post a cupcake that you got there. And then people have to assume that's all you're eating. And
right,
like
that's not healthy.
Business anyway. God,
you know what?
Conversely, you post a salad, and then everyone yells at you for being too pure. Like,
yeah.
Why can't people A, mind their own fucking business, B, understand that diets are supposed to be varied, that if
they don't want that broccoli and they don't want the cauliflower, give it to me. My kids don't complain. Neither do I. I will saute it, fry it, whatever. It will go in my stomach. Give me the cupcake. Don't judge me. It's that time of the month. I will eat that cupcake. It will be it.
You better not put any
People
nuts
just
in
lose
there.
their minds.
If you put nuts in their
Yes,
mouth,
I will sprinkle all nuts.
That's right.
There better
All
not
the
be any
nuts, all the
gluten.
seeds, everything.
All of them.
It's the best conversation ever. the rolling of the eyes. This is one of those where I think Marla would, if she could go through the screen and shake somebody, she would have this. And that's why I say there's a lot of people who want to remove the vegan label and just do and be good for the planet, be good for the animals, and be good for
Is
your
Marla
health.
still with us? She looks a little frozen on my screen.
We broke Marla. Aw. Sorry,
Did she
Marla.
intentionally do that?
At least she's smiling.
You know, I have an opinion about this because the first time I heard someone say don't call me vegan was Lindsay Nixon, the happy herbivore. And she was like, don't call me, I'm not vegan anymore. I'm not going to be part of that group because I take care of myself. I don't eat junk food. And Rip Esselstyn is the same way. He never uses vegan because he doesn't want to be grouped in. And I've heard him say this. I used to be part of a couple different groups and stuff. I've heard him say that vegan means junk food and he can't be associated with that. For me, because vegan means more than what I'm eating, I will never get rid of that word because it captures so much about who I am, how I live, how I show up in the world, the decisions I make. And I think it makes it very clear to anyone who is curious about me who I am as a person. It's not a bad word. Yeah, there are people who are total assholes that are vegan. I get it. I've met them. But that's not the whole thing. And I think people like me need to show people that vegan isn't a bad word. Don't be afraid to be vegan because we need to be considering all aspects of it. So I don't know what other words you might want to use that might cover everything, but for me, that's it.
That's a great point.
Right. My kind of attitude about it is if there's a label, I know there are a lot of people who don't like labels, but if there's a label that really I feel a special connection with, I am proud to use that label. And I'm proud to be vegan. These people who are shaming and angry and all of that, they don't own that word, you know. Yeah. Same with feminists.
They need a good cupcake. They need a good cupcake. That'll change it.
That's why they're so angry.
Exactly.
They're denying them.
The cupcakes.
Honestly.
I do
understand. Wonder about that. Like, is there a connection between dietary just extremes and anger? And like, I'd be angry if all I thought about was how terrible everyone else's diet was. I'd be angry all the time. You know,
you would be considered angry all the time if you were telling everyone how terrible their diet was.
Yeah.
I mean, how healthy is that? How nice is that? I mean, once again,
like, how lacking of a life do you have?
Right.
Who hurt you? What vegan hurt you?
Yes, right.
Dolly, where you were hurt.
What happened in your childhood? Because something clearly happened.
You need a hug and a cupcake. Shit. I think that's just like you guys said. You know, there are people that don't like labels, and you know, hooray on them. I am not going to stop you from the word, okay? Vegan. I am proudly vegan. You know, you have people that want to drop it, or maybe because they're ashamed. I'm not ashamed to be vegan because just like you said, Kimberly, it's more than just that. If you don't want to be vegan because just say I eat healthily. Look, I like junk food. I like see, yes. See there? There's no when people are like, you know, oh, it makes it like it's something wrong or whatever. No. Look at what Ellen is presenting. Everything in moderation. You know, look. Okay. Junk food. Anything can be. There are things like in my culture that we have, like certain things, like plantains, which we fry. For me, like if my parents or no one knows in my family what to, just give me a big bowl. Give me a barrel full of fried plantains and leave me alone. I go about my business. That and coconut rice, okay? And that is something, because it's a carb, that can cause you, if you don't work out or whatever, to go ahead and gain weight. For them to saying, you know, junk food, vegan food, you know, I don't want to call myself vegan because of junk food. There's junk food everywhere. You don't have to be vegan to consume junk food. I don't get this. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. No. Like my face is just like, please. Bye. Go. I will enjoy for you. I will think about you while I nibble. You can have your foolishness and think that way. I think, again, it's alienating and it's painting a picture and it's just stupid. If you don't want to call yourself vegan, fine. But to start some movement saying I'm no longer because of junk food?
Right.
That junk food is one of the main reasons that people actually go vegan.
Ding,
And
ding, ding.
Yeah.
we're including the junk food. We're not just talking about a cupcake. We're talking about the Beyond Burgers. We're talking
Yeah.
about,
Mhm.
Impossible and all the plant-based meats that are processed food that would
Mhm.
definitely be considered junk food. However, high in protein, lower in fat than an actual hot dog,
Right.
sausage, hamburger that you would eat that's made from an animal. Gosh, please eat that. Don't eat it every day. Because
Exactly.
just like a
Moderation.
hamburger, it's not healthy for you to eat every day. However,
Yeah.
but if you do, okay.
Is
I'd
it
rather you eat
anyone
I'd rather
else's
you eat an
business?
Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger every day with some potatoes and peas. I don't care what you eat, than eating animal products. I want you to be healthy though at the same time. I don't want you to have high blood pressure. I don't want you to get strokes or heart disease or cancer. That high fat can lead to cholesterol issues, even though it doesn't have cholesterol, because fat, excess oil in your body can lead to a high cholesterol, even though you're not taking any cholesterol. So there's things to be considerate of, especially if it runs in your family. But you know this, but at the same time, it's your life. But if I love you and you're part of my life, I want you to live for as long as you can. So you have to balance out the I don't want to see you get sick because of your diet, vegan or not. It was Kim Andrews. That's a doctor, right? Kim
Williams,
Doc-
Dr. Kim
Williams,
Williams.
yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Kim Williams said at Peapod that a diet that's vegan, that's horrible, is just as bad as a standard American diet. So it can cause the same disease. So that's something we have to factor that in when we talk about this, because I don't want to see vegans dying of diseases that I don't want to see anyone die of diseases. Let's put that caveat out there. But I don't want to see people who are eating like this and thinking when they eat their French fries and their grilled vegan cheese with lots of butter, maybe even mayo on the bread, because yes, you can do that. You can slather it with vegan mayo and make it like a grilled cheese like that. Yeah, that'd be delicious. Vegan mayo is oil. So whatever you do, those foods and French fries and fried foods and processed foods, and you don't really eat any greens or vegetables.
I have to say, I don't know a ton of vegans like that. I mean, like, I'm not in everyone's kitchen, but I do
Right.
feel like that is a matter between the individual and their doctor or their dietitian or their coach. It's not really for me.
If they have that, Marla, but a lot of people don't know how to cook.
I know, but like, where do
And they're
we as-
young. The young vegans who decide to go like in college, you can't cook. That's what they eat. I was vegetarian eating French fries and grilled cheese with pickles and ketchup. I was 19. I wasn't cooking at 19. I knew how, but I wasn't. It's not healthy, but we can be that influencer on just by saying that. And then the people say, I don't know how to cook. I don't know where to get this information. Well, Kimberly said it earlier, PCRM, nutritionfacts.org for both of those. Great resources. So Dr. Campbell is a good resource. Plant Pure Nation is a good resource. Forks Over Knives is a great resource. But some people just can't cook. So they rely on eating out. Eating out, even vegan, not necessarily healthy. I mean, I guess to bring it full circle, there's a reason why someone would stop. I gained weight being vegan because I was eating out every meal because you don't know how to cook. Any person who eats out every meal is going to gain weight. I don't care what kind of food you're eating, because you're higher salt, higher fat. Do you drink soda? Do you drink sugared drinks? What are you putting into your body? Are you paying attention to that? Do you care? You care enough to stop being vegan. Okay. Where's that line? Is it easier to not be vegan in this world? Yeah. Still, not as much, because it's really become very mainstream, but where you live matters. Do you have access to fruits and vegetables? Typically affecting the BIPOC communities. What do you do? Are we supposed to judge I think we all agree that we're not supposed to judge and do our best to not judge. Do we also agree that we all have and could and would, depending on the circumstance? Yeah. For sure. That vitamin D thing got me going. If you put out foolishness and we know that science backs up the opposite, I can't see any of us not saying something or writing it. I don't want to be a keyboard warrior, but facts are facts. Ellen said it. I agree with what Ellen said a long time ago, which is like an hour ago now, that there's no reason to not be vegan to improve your health. Like, if you stop being vegan because you have a health issue, it's a toughie. I've heard people say they can't eat fruits and vegetables. They can't eat soy, beans, nuts. They're allergic to all of that. And when you remove the basics of a vegan diet, soy, beans, nuts, gluten, what is left for someone to eat? Can they stay vegan? Kimberly.
So my answer is not directly in response to that, but I actually did a show about this last Monday on the 18th about how to help people who stop being vegan and want to go back. And one of the things that I also suggested was think about what made you decide to stop being vegan. What is missing in your life? What's going on around you? Where are you not getting what you need? What is it that you need that you don't have? Because most of us didn't grow up vegan. We made this choice. When life gets really hard, we could find comfort in something from our non-vegan days. And so I think it's super important for anyone who has made the decision, for whatever reason, they think they're not healthy anymore because they're vegan, or there's some emotional aspect, to not just think about, like I said earlier, what made you go vegan in the first place, but consider where you are right now and what is happening in your life. And how can you figure out what caused you to make that change? Because you can very likely find your way back to veganism, which I believe if you went vegan in the first place, that's where your alignment is. That's where your values truly sit. So when you're not vegan anymore, you're out of alignment with who you are. You're not living your fullest, truest life. And it's going to be very hard, I think, to find your way back to like a true state of like happiness and being if you're living out of alignment with all of that.
Ellen?
Just briefly, when somebody says they have a medical issue, and this happened when the whole gluten thing started being popular, and I'm not dissing that necessarily, but I think it's important to say to people, do you have a medical diagnosis for this condition? Because now there's so many different tests that you really can get for these various conditions that's helpful rather than just sort of thinking you do. Get it confirmed.
No?
I don't know why this, I think it, as you guys were talking, it kind of, just something was like, ding. Helly, when you were talking about how some people don't like fruits and vegetables, they may not like it. Both of my children are on the spectrum. Something is also have to take into consideration, like sensory. Certain textures, certain things like that, and they may not know what the alternative would be. Or how can you reintroduce that? Avocado, for example. I love it with a passion. Kenna loves it. Ama, what is this? Take it away. But if you make a smoothie or you make a pudding or you make a ganache or something with it, he will go ahead and take it. My siblings, they're older. I'm the oldest of 3, but certain things are sensory. Me, I've been vegan for 20 something plus years. Some things are sensory. So some things may not, and that's the other thing too, touching upon the youth. Again, I think it's for the young people, for younger people, they have a great resource in TikTok because they can find someone that looks like them that may be vegan but doesn't like this and then they're like, here's what you could have. So there are a lot of possibly other things to take into consideration for that. The gluten thing, yes, I agree, get tested. Something else that I just noticed, or I think I would say, besides everything that we touched upon in terms of someone not going vegan, is media. I'll tell you why I say that. When the reports came back out of parents who were vegan, who had children, and I mean babies, because of the neglect or lack of knowledge, those babies died because they were just like, well, I eat this, so I'm going to literally kind of starve you, or introduce the child to this at a very young age. You're kind of wondering, it's like, do you think having a baby and being vegan, and just because you're like, I'm vegan now, it's not like having a bag, it's not a dog, it's not a purse, it's not a new flashy thing that you think, no, this is not what you do. And because stories like that of malnutrition or the child being taken away, that throws people off.
Mhm.
As a parent, what I heard with 2 children that I'm vegan and they are, I mean, I was slung through the ringer. Like, they're gonna grow up deficient. They're gonna, they're not gonna be strong. They're weak. You're endangering their health. I'm like, okay, yes, look at them now. They look like they're teenagers. They're 8 and 9. Here you go. Look at them. I mean, there's nothing that is wrong because you also research and you're smart. Just because I'm vegan, I never had intention where I was like, I'm vegan, so they're going to be vegan and don't do any research. Their bodies are different. Their bodies are growing. So
Mhm.
also having medical professionals that understand that their pediatrician is fantastic. They have been with a plant-based pediatrician since they have been seen. And if I am missing something, they will let me know. But because I took the time to realize it's not about me, they are doing very well. But the media can just divert it. It's hard when you're a parent. Like it is really hard because you have people that want to do it, and then they'll be like, well, I tried it, or I'm scared, so I don't want to do it. Or especially if they get pregnant. Working in OBGYN's office, they were like, well, I'm pregnant now, so I can't be vegan anymore. I'm like, then they're most of the time sometimes deterred away by the doctor. And it's really unfortunate because you can thrive on one. Both pregnancies thrived on a vegan, still being vegan. So there are a lot of circumstances, a lot of asking why you were, taking into account and not judging. I just full out judge those that are like, I'm going to milk this cow. I'm going to milk this almond for what it's worth to go ahead and make money. That's what it is.
Okay.
So,
Well, Stew Crew, this was a lively talk and amazing. We are almost an hour and 20 minutes in. So thank you once again. I might take that little piece in the middle and turn it into a little clip because we were all jumping out of our seats, which was fantastic. But let me see. Let me close this out. Yep. There's a picture of you like that. Let's close this out. Thank you, Nels. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks, Marla. So thanks again for joining the Stew Crew. We are off next week. It's our planning meeting, but Coach Kayla will be on at 7 p.m. next week to talk about health and nutrition. She's a registered dietitian, so bring your questions, and you only get her once a month, so please do that. Thank you, Susan. Really appreciate it. And Ms. Jazzy, thank you. We do judge knowingly and unknowingly. That's 100% true. Thank you for tuning in as well. Go to the Vegan Stew on YouTube, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Do the same thing with Virtual Veg Fest. Really appreciate it. And we want to grow our following and share this with your spheres because this is a good one. Lots of stuff was in this conversation. And when we come back, I don't know. We don't know what we'll talk about when we come back, but it'll be something lively and something fun. And in the meantime, be kind to one another. Take care of yourselves. Wear a mask. COVID is absolutely awful. Stephen just got better from it, and it wasn't pleasant to watch him be that sick. I don't want any of you to feel that sick at all. So there are things you can do to make it so that you're not. Try and do them. That would be great. Outside of that, have a great night. and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.